Good Tuesday evening to you all out there, and welcome into another episode of the Barking Brown Show. I'm Jacob. That's Casey, Mr. Nick Carnes down below. Brought to you as always by our friends over at Homage Apparel. I got the I Love to Fart shirt on because it's true, I do. Go check out our friends over at Homage Apparel, best vintage apparel company in the brand. If you're checking us out on Twitch and you want to support the show, or if you're not checking us out on Twitch, but you still want to support the show, you can come to the Twitch, you can subscribe to the channel, you can do it for free if you got Amazon Prime. Help us continue to make great content for you. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, put that little bell on so every time we drop a video, give us a little thumbs up. It does us a ton of good. Gentlemen, how are we this evening?
Better than I deserve. Post-draft hangover. Now we have to wait a little while before anything of consequence happens, even though the Browns did sign someone today, which I'm sure we'll get into. So I'm ready.
Go Cavs, go Guards. We think this is a fun night, man. You got playoff basketball, you got baseball going on, you got draft recap. I love that Cleveland has all three teams because it's fun year round, and so I'm ready. It was a marathon. I just want to say thank you to everybody that joined us for our 13 hours, 14 a gazillion million hours, all 3 nights. That was awesome. It was a marathon, and for those of you that joined us, it means a lot to us. And we are doing that hat giveaway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're doing a hat giveaway. We've entered some people in there into the hat giveaway. I need to pull up my damn thing so I can just there's also a hat giveaway going on my personal Twitter. I did do that. I did put that over on the Twitter, so if you want to check that out over there. But if you're hanging out and checking us out here on whatever the hell we're on, thank you. Yeah, I'm still a little bit fried. That was a creative. Mitch subbed to the channel. Mitch, appreciate you, brother. We're happy that you're here. Thank you for stopping by, as always. Yeah. Hop over on the Twitch if you want to support us. Sub to the channel, that sort of thing. Sub to the YouTube, all that good stuff. Yeah, I was dealing with a little bit of the post-draft hangover. I've done several write-ups and got several more things that are planned. Really. Full disclosure, I've gotten to a little bit of tape for all 6 picks to where I can feel relatively confident about grading them, because I'm not going to go into an exercise like this and do something if I don't feel like, and I'm not going to attach something to my name if I don't feel like I am confident in what I'm saying, I guess is what I'm getting at. And but in this case, I feel pretty good about it. Watched it. Still working on Michael Hall. By the way, live on Friday and then put up on YouTube. Friday night will be the deep dive, film dive for Michael Hall. So that will be what that episode's all about. I've been cutting up some clips, so I have some film clips that'll go with that, and we'll all kind of. I don't know if all 3 of us will be here or not. I mean, I don't know what your guys' schedules are. I haven't asked you, but I assume so.
I'll be here.
Okay. I was like, we'll just find out right here, right now, if everybody's going to be here. But I will say, full disclosure, that Miles Harden, I've not watched a ton on Miles Harden. So that you can take that grade with a grain of salt if you want to when we get there. So what? We need to talk about Brian Allen? Is that his name, Brian Allen?
Yeah, you nailed it.
No, I'm kidding. I knew it is. So the Browns signed a center today. A lot of people were very confused by it. I just see it as a camp body that could make the roster because he's got like 32 career starts and he's played relatively well, but I don't think it's as big to do. I mean, he's had some injury history and that's led him to be a free agent.
Pretty similar to Ethan Pocic. When we got him, he had 29 career starts through 5 years at Seattle. You look at Allen, he also had 3 years under Dickerson with the Rams from 18 to 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's that familiarity as well. I think it's a twofold thing. Ethan Pocic has played well when he's been on the field. He battles some injuries, you know what I'm saying? So do they feel 100% confident that that Whippler is ready to be the man if called upon. Maybe not. Maybe they want to afford him another year of development. Probably be, he can moonlight a little bit at guard, but at the end of the day, if they want to develop him, they can stash him, and he can be a guy who's just not on the active roster. And you can allow Allen to be the backup. I think that's probably the clearest path. And it, like you said, or it could just be a camp body. He just has enough experience, and Whippler really has none.
Yeah. I definitely see the obvious appeal with a guy who's been good. I mean, he's had good stretch. He got a contract extension from LA. I know our Drew in the Brick City was pointing it out because he was a little bit just asking some questions about the signing and pointed out, that I think it was like a 3-year, $18 million contract. So, and for a center, I mean, that's a nice. It was a couple years ago when he got it too.
Right. He was their center during their Super Bowl run.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's
He's not bad, but it's just a guy that's battled some injuries and a real good. I'll never complain about veteran depth with successful starts under their belt.
I mean, we weren't pumped about Pocic when they signed him. It wasn't like you know what I mean? Look what it's turned into. So I can't. Who knows what it turns into? But
you know what? I just think. So I said this on the draft show a couple times, but I've been watching Baltimore and Pittsburgh just bolster their line on both sides for decades and profiting from it. And so the Browns are following suit, man. The Browns have been doing that. And I think the offensive line especially went more off reputation last year than they did performance. And it's not a knock on them because there were so many injuries, right? We just watched linemen fall left and right. So
every 5 minutes it felt like.
Right. So how anybody could look at what happened to the Browns offensive line last year and be questioning adding offensive linemen doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So give me all the linemen. I want them all. And you know what? It'll be fun camp battles. I'm really excited for camp.
There are some camp battles, and we're going to get to them when we talk about some of these draft picks. Casey, what you rocking tonight there? What do you got there? What flavor?
This is peach mango.
Okay, listen. Ooh. I went with Warhead sour green apple today.
Nice. Yeah, it's in my top 5.
Ooh, phenomenal. I was See, when I was younger, I hated sour candy. I couldn't take it because we used to put the Warheads in our mouth until the skin would peel off the inside of your cheeks. Yeah. So for a long time I went away from it, but I discovered that sour, sweet and sour energy drinks are my shit now.
Okay.
So. I will say this: if you take that one in particular and you put it in a glass of ice, it holds up well because it's like a thick, robust flavor. It doesn't feel like it gets watered down. Almost kind of refreshing.
All right.
I drink black coffee.
Yes.
That's if you can do that, man, it's better for you.
It's way better for you.
I am a fiend. Highly recommend Panera's Sips Club. Not sponsored, but wish I was. Unlimited drinks every 2 hours. You get a free drink.
That's fucking crazy. Okay. All right, let's talk about the draft. We might have some time tonight, Mitch, to get to some UDFAs. If we don't, we'll get to them next week. That's the beauty of this go around. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube because I know a lot of people have been watching, but the subs are suspiciously low. And I don't
listen. I know not to go too far off on a tangent, but I know y'all are watching Fallout, right? You got Amazon Prime to watch Fallout, and you can apply that to the Twitch channel for free and help us and help you. And you get fun emotes and no ads.
And you want to see some skin? Like I'll show some skin. Is that what it takes? Or if you sub, I won't show some skin. How about that?
Do that. Yes.
Yeah. Let's do it the other way around. Let's go. All right, guys, we are going to get into the draft grades now. I want to put a disclaimer here that I hate doing these, but we have to do these. It feels like it, man. Like it feels like everybody wants to know what you think about the draft. So we'll grade it. I don't think it's fair because they've never stepped foot on an NFL field, and a lot of things can go wrong. Like one of these guys could never play because they have just injuries year after. You know what I mean? Like things like that. And so it's really unfair. And some players are, further along in their development and all this shit. So, but I will explain, and if you guys want to take the time, you can. When I look at my grades, I look at the player versus who they could have gotten and the overall vision. I'm not just talking about them right now, because I heard that I saw a lot of grades for the Browns that were low, like in the C's and things like that, because they said none of these players are playing this year. And I'm like, what does that matter? They're like, oh, the guard, Zach Zenner is going to be behind two of the best guards. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It's not about who's going to be the best rookie. It's about who were the best picks.
Right.
And so to me, I'm looking at all of that, who they could have had, the roster construction, and their overall career path. That's where I'm at with my grades.
I just want to ask, is Jordan Love a bad pick because he didn't play right away?
And see, the Packers he threw for 4,000 yards.
Do you think the Packers are regretting that pick?
Well, no, that's the thing, though. That's why this exercise we're doing it's fun. It's how you saw the draft in your own eyes and how you perceive the things to go down versus the reality. Because if we're really doing this, all these grades are incomplete.
Right.
And we'll revisit it in 4 years because that's when we'll actually know. But that's not the world we live in. Yeah, do you know what I mean? We're not even waiting. That was 48 hours ago.
It's like 3 days. Yeah, but we also get this opportunity for me to yell at Casey because Casey wasn't on the show for these first few picks. When I yelled at Nick, I didn't yell at Nick. There was no yelling. There was yelling, but it was stuff like, you were there for the Michael Penix yelling. I was like, what the fuck was that?
Oh, Falcons.
Oh, God. Yeah, we can have a conversation about that later, too. But I think we already talked about that, like, for an hour and a half. Yeah, but I haven't had an opportunity to go at Casey yet. So, I'm going to do it.
Good luck.
Bring it on, bitch. All right.
The gun's loaded.
I know it is. All right, we'll start with obviously at the top, pick 54, their first pick on of the night, Michael Hall Jr., the Ohio State defensive tackle. Nick gives it an A. Casey gives it a B. I give it a B plus. We're gonna go in that order. So Nick, you're up.
You don't have to roll the clocks back very far to get to our episode where we were first picking our targets for the Browns, and Michael Hall was my target then, and I was really happy when the Browns took him. Okay, so let's start with a few things. First of all, he's really young, right? I believe he's 21 now.
He'll be 21 in June.
He'll be 21 in June. Okay, so he'll be 21 this season. That is a tremendous age to get a guy like this, because it's no secret the Browns have been searching for a young defensive tackle that can rush the passer. They tried that with Jordan Elliott, and he was okay. But I just think Michael Hall is an entirely different level of pass rushing prospect. Like we saw that he had, was it the second highest pass rush win rate among all defensive tackle prospects in the draft?
I believe it was something like that.
I believe it was as well. You see that the burst, the athleticism, that realistically, like, okay, so best case scenario, if Michael Hall works out, you're looking at a guy that could be a disruptive force in your interior for a decade, right? And I just think it pairs so well with the pressure that the Browns consistently generate from the edges. If you got somebody coming up the middle, that's the key right there. And I just know, like, when you look at the Browns defensive line as a whole, there are a ton of short-term contracts. Michael Hall, so you draft Siaki Ika last year, but he's not that pass rushing type. We'll get to some Ika talk later. Michael Hall is, and I just think it makes so much sense when obviously in the Jim Schwartz defense, you want to get after the quarterback, you want to be aggressive, you want to be able to get pressure. But so much in the NFL is centered around getting pressure with the front four and only the front four. In today's NFL, Michael Hall is a key and a tremendous step towards just getting pressure with your front four. I couldn't be happier with it. I just think it makes so much sense. I know the defensive tackle room is full. I get it. But this is not a skill set in a young rookie contract that you have. Now you do.
I just remember when the pick was announced, my initial reaction was like, hey, at least one of us got our guy. Like, because I knew, like, I knew how bad, like, I was working on some slide, these graphics for this show, and there was multiple photos in my phone of Michael Hall Jr. because we had to keep bringing him up in different podcasts and things like that. So like it was there. We talked about him a ton. I just wanted to say one note, I heard somebody said something on Twitter or something I can't remember who it was to credit them, but something along the lines of sometimes a dump truck is just a dump truck. The floor is yours, Casey.
Okay. I'm going to start with everything that Nick said is true.
Yep.
Out on top, how much smoke did we hear about this particular guy to the Browns?
I mean, it felt like every week there was something about connecting the two.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I'm about to say is nothing against Michael Hall. Michael Hall is a fine player. He fits the scheme. There's so many positives to Michael Hall. He's young. He's tremendously explosive. His first step's ridiculous. But at the end of the day, he is a rotational pass rushing defensive tackle. Now he's 20. Maybe he grows from his 283-pound frame.
Yeah.
So that's the hope, because at the end of the day, you didn't draft this just for that. You draft this for the upside of potentially getting a 3-down player down the line who can take up major snaps for you. And so you're not renting all these players year to year to year.
Right.
But part of what Jacob said earlier is what we're doing here is how did this look to us? Where are they on our pecking order and the vision? For me, the vision is what got blurred here. I think a massive opportunity was missed to address something that's going to be a problem next year. You had three offensive tackles still on the board floating. You had Blake Fisher, Kingsley Sumatea, Karan Amagaji. So basically, here's how I look at it. Yes, you've eliminated the need to rent pass rushers in the future. But that's way cheaper than renting an offensive tackle. I promise you, a starting level offensive tackle is pricey. And I live in a world in which I don't expect Jed Wills to play to a level that he's comfortable signing a contract with the Browns. Because if he plays out of his mind, he's going to want a top-level contract. Given his body of work, you can't offer that to him, man. So they're going to have to lowball him. He's going to have to go elsewhere. Or you franchise tag him. And do you want to waste a franchise tag on Jedrick Wills? No. But you had a potential to have his replacement in place and to groom him, And I just think that was missed. And I think it was a couple things. It was a forecast. You have to predict when these runs are going to happen in the draft.
Yeah.
And the way things were playing out, it looked like that second tier of tackles might go into the third.
Yeah.
It disappeared at the end of the second. The wide receiver run happened in the beginning of the second. So the Browns were caught in this middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
There was a D tackle run there at the beginning of the second too.
I have zero problems with Michael Hall, the player. 54 is rich for me. For me, he's a trade back candidate. You want Michael Hall? He'd have been available in the 60s. But you have to have two to tango. You have to have a party. If no one's picking up that phone answering your calls, you got to pick your guy. He was obviously their guy. So this could work out tremendously. But for me, for this to work out, he's got to become a 3-down player who can take a lion's share of snaps down the road. I don't expect that year 1, year 2, but when we get to year 3, that's what I need to see, So that's where I'm at with the pick. He's a good player. I don't know how much of a role he's going to have this year, but they don't need him to because they were kind of flush with that exact thing, rotational pass rushing defensive tackles with Quentin Jefferson and Mo Hurst.
Yeah, and I think one thing I think about with Michael Hall is if injuries strike or if they decide to move on from Mo Hurst is that's his role this year at most, is what they used Mo Hurst in last year, like 300 snaps probably, something along those lines, 250, 300 snaps, probably something in that range. So yeah, like for me, I look at the overall body and I am a big fan of betting on traits in the draft when they're incredible, and his athletic traits are incredible. He needs to get a little bit bigger. And in my mind, if he, like you said, to be a 3-downer, I think he needs to be closer to 290, 292, something like that. He's in the low. I would like him in the low 290s at worst. And I think he could. I mean, he's got the frame to where I think he could add that size and not lose that explosiveness and some things that are really his calling card. His 18.3 pass rush win rate in 2023 was pretty great. There was a quote. I was listening to the OBR. Where did I put that down? I was listening to the OBR like right after right after night 2, and Andrew Spade had said something that the pick of Michael Hall is like the ultimate projection pick. Like it's all about projection because he had 1 year. I mean, last year he plays 228 pass rush snaps, but in 2022 he only played 266 snaps total. So he played 413 snaps last year. So there's not a ton of tape. So you're projecting it. But with his age and his athleticism, he said, I believe if he had like 3 or 4 more sacks this year, he would have been a first rounder. Just a little bit more production, and he probably goes even sooner. It was the point, which is true. Obviously, anybody has more production, they're going to go higher. But the point is, he's got the traits that you could argue round 1 buzz. Like, rather that's warranted or not, because I don't think it is. But he reminds me, a lot of the talk around Michael Hall reminds me of the Kalijah Kancey stuff last year. Small, undersized defensive tackle, really athletic, explosive, shoots the gap. I think Kalijah Kancey far more polished and produced more in college than Michael Hall, but I look at him at the same. Whereas a little bit more production with Kancey, he goes in the first round. And so I think he has first round traits. So that's ultimately why it gets a B+ from me, is that I can bet on these traits. And I finally believe in a coaching staff to actually develop traits. Like I believe in Jim Schwartz and Ben Bloom, those guys that are out there coaching them up. Or did they
Jacques Césaire?
Yeah, they switched defensive line coaches, didn't they?
Jacques Césaire.
Yeah.
Experience though from Houston.
I was thinking of Tarver. I was thinking about the linebacker coach still being there with that. But anyway, I believe in what Jim Schwartz does. This is the kind of defensive tackle Jim Schwartz likes. It lines up with all that stuff. So the fit, the scheme, the future, it makes sense to me. But I think you could have gone other places. And there was a run on defensive tackles there that was really weird. Arukororo went before Johnny Newton. I don't know what the hell was going on that second round of the NFL draft. So I think their point was the only other defensive tackle we like in this range and the guy we love is Michael Hall. And I think I think Casey, you hit the nail on the head. They wanted their guy and they didn't care where they were taking him. They wanted Michael Hall for obvious reasons, and they weren't going to not have Michael Hall. So I get that aspect of it, but ultimately it's a B+ for me. I want it to be an A, but I just there were some tackles that offensive tackles that I think would have just been better picks.
That's where my head was at too. I will say this: since 2016, Hall has the best pass rush win rate of any defensive tackle behind Christian Barmore and Quinnen Williams,
who just got paid.
Yeah, but those dudes are bigger too. Like Barmore 6'5", 315, and Quinnen Williams they have him listed at 303 pounds. Boy, I don't look it. but those are little bigger players. So
there's best case scenario, Michael Hall is your dominant interior pass rusher for a decade, right? Mm-hmm. And so he has, I get it, the range of outcomes, there's certainly a floor there too. But I'm just saying, when you look at the upside of this type of pick, I think that's what's got me is just because we know how long they've been looking for this type of talent. So
I love betting on traits, like I said, and it's ultimately what ended me where I am.
And for years, I've been saying they need to swing higher defensive tackle because they kept taking these 3rd and 4th round guys, and it just wasn't getting it done.
Yeah.
So this was what that is.
Okay. Where's my button? Bam. We move. What the? Is there?
Yeah, we're here.
Uh-oh.
You got it. I believe in you. We were on Zach Zinter for a second.
Why is there?
There we go.
Oh no, we're missing one.
So are we skipping around like Tarantino?
But I think I accidentally.
It's just, I think it's Jowon Briggs. We'll be okay.
I think I know I made a Jowon Briggs slide. I don't know what the hell's going on here.
Well, we've still got Zach Zinter.
All right. Anyway. All right. Round 3, pick 85, Zach Zinter, the offensive guard from Michigan. Nick gives it a C-. Casey a C. I give it a B. So off the rip, Nick, go ahead.
Okay. So this is not, like Casey's thinking, this is not a knock on Zach Zinter. I think he feels like the safest pick that the Browns made. Like, I feel like you know what you're getting with Zach Zinter. He's mean. He was team captain of the national champions. You can see he likes hitting people. I watched some clips of him pulling and just knocking the hell out of people. Looks like a guy that is certainly going to be a contributor for the Browns. Now, I know we had this conversation earlier, and we said, well, like Jordan Love is obviously a good pick for the Packers because he's great for them now. And I certainly think that Zinter can be that type of guy for the Browns. I just think that when we were looking at this, it's like the Browns have this huge drop off of picks, right? Because with hindsight now, we know they didn't trade up, but it's like just from where they were at, it's like you're not picking again for a long time. And we heard all these things about the receiver class. And I just felt like, for me, it was Javon Baker. I really thought Javon Baker was a guy that could contribute this year because I have a lot of questions. So, Elijah Moore really looked like he was coming on with Joe Flacco against the Jets, and he gets concussed, right? And so it's definitely been up and down there. Jerry Jeudy's been up and down in his NFL career. Amari Cooper is still the only receiver in that room that you can say, hey, this guy has bona fide, legitimate, consistent production. And I just so wanted them to get a bite at that higher tier. And no disrespect to Jamari Thrash, we'll get there. I just wanted that higher tier of wide receiver. And I felt like once they took Zinter, it was like, unless you're trading up, you're not getting that bite at the apple. And so just looking at where the Browns are at now, I would have liked to see a guy like Javon Baker for the Browns rather than Zinter. Although I fully acknowledge Zinter could be the Browns' best pick from this draft. That is among the range of outcomes, right? He could, if he's your guard for, 8 years, whatever, 2 contracts, like that's a home run find in the 3rd round. And I totally acknowledge that. So it's not a knock on him. It's just kind of the way the draft played.
Okay. I get the swing and offensive guard. We focus a lot on the tackles, which is an issue, but that's an issue next year. You have an aging Joel Bitonio. He's going to ride off into the sunset at some point.
Right.
You have Wyatt Teller, who started off kind of cold last year, came on as it went. He kind of plays uneven at times, but for some reason, he's always the debated like trade talks. You ever notice that? Like Wyatt Teller's always the guy.
Always.
Yeah, because there's enough good tape to flip him. Blah blah blah.
Yeah. So what they should have done with tackles, what they did with guard. They got a guy. Best case scenario, he doesn't sniff the field this year. You develop him. The things he excels at, he'll excel out at the pros. Nasty run blocker, gets out in open space. Literally, if you watch Wyatt Teller in the run game, and you're kind of getting a snapshot of what this dude is. Yeah. He needs to refine a lot of his pass sets. But he didn't get to do a ton of that at Michigan, so we don't even know what all he's capable of because the offense that they ran. But you give him a year to develop that. And then in 2025, if Joel decides to go to the sunset or they actually do pull off a Wyatt Teller trade, you kind of have a seamless transition type of guy. Mm-hmm. Completely get that. The guard that went next in the draft was Dominic Pooney. I would have rather had him. I think the ceiling on Pooney is way higher than Zinter. To Nick's point, I think it's the floor with this guy.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's a very solid floor.
It's a very safe pick.
That's exactly what Nick said, and I concur 100%. They played it down the middle. But again, this is my big beef with this. You want this guy in the 3rd round? No sweat. Trade back and get this guy in the 3rd round. He would have been available, man. Because we didn't have to jump in front of a team to get him. It's the broken leg put enough question marks around him that I think if you want him, you can trade back and get him and gain assets. Maybe you gain that 4th rounder.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
which
you
would
can
have
come
been
out
really nice.
saying, so to me, that's what this comes down to is the value. Fine player. I think he could be a fine starter going forward, but I don't think the value is there for where you got him.
If I'm not mistaken, Casey, the 49ers traded up the pick after this pick. And so, like, Andrew Berry acknowledged that they got calls, and I'm assuming it was from San Francisco, who was trying. I don't know who they were trying. I don't know who they drafted, but that's irrelevant. My point is, the Browns could have traded down. That was very weird to me because they've traded down and made moves so many times, and they just stayed at every pick. Yeah. Did that strike you as weird, Jacob?
Yeah, I mean, I expected it one way or the other. Like, I don't know if it was going to be a trade up or a trade down, and more likely than not, it would have been a trade down. I was ultimately surprised by that, but the floor of Zenter and watching him, I just think about not worrying about one of your guard spots for the next half a decade, like we haven't with left guard. And so for me, that's why it's higher for me than it is. I agree. I love Dominic Pooney. Even if you think Pooney is just a guard, and some people think that, I think he can play a little bit of tackle. But even if he is a guard, he's a guard that you can kick out to tackle in a pinch. So I'm with you on that. I kind of thought you could get Zenter later. I heard a lot of people say that they thought without the broken leg, he was going to push the tail end of round 1. I'm not sure that's the case, but I'm sure he probably would have been a bona fide round 3, round 2 guy if he hadn't broken his leg. So I thought the broken leg would make him fall further than it did. Obviously, they didn't think so. And so it is what it is. It's the ultimate safe pick. And honestly, I'm just not going to ding him for it. And I don't have a problem if you are going to ding him for it, because I get it. There were players you viewed it better. Hell, there's players I viewed better than him in that spot that would have made more sense. I really thought for sure it was going to be if they only drafted one lineman, it was going to be a tackle. So that part, when you then so at the time I didn't know they weren't going to pick a tackle, but once I'm now taking a step back, I'm a little bit more like, man, I kind of wish that was a tackle instead of a guard. And it feels wrong because Zach Zenter's a hell of a player. Like, his dude can play. Like you said, he is nasty in the run. He's a limited athlete. He's an average athlete. He's not a bad athlete. He's not an elite athlete. I think his hand placement, especially in the run game, I think it's phenomenal. I think especially as a run blocker, he is a very polished prospect. And well, you run the ball 75 times a game, you'll be pretty good at run blocking. It's just like they did at Michigan. But it's like, I see Wyatt Teller in Zenter's game. And for me, that projection brought the grade up higher than what you guys, because I have a lot of the same feelings that you guys have. But I'm looking at this guy, and I don't know if he's a left guard or a right guard. He was a right guard in college. I think he can play either side. We don't really know. So he either replaces Joel or he replaces Wyatt, one or the other. And I think when he does, you'll feel good about it. Like, I think you'll feel good about it. And because of that, that's why he ultimately comes to a B. I think he plays with good leverage. I think he pulls really well. I mean, I had some deja vu watching him pull and knock people out. I was like, hey, is that Wyatt Teller out there knocking people out in the open? He is. He's a mauler, man. Like, he will get it. When he gets after you, he will get after you. That's a really high floor player, and I think it's a limited ceiling because of his athleticism. I don't think it's quite on par with a Wyatt Teller completely, if we're being quite honest. But I do think that you plug him in at one of those guard spots, and you're not worrying about that for the next 5 or 6 years. And so ultimately, I land on a B because I think he's a really, really good lineman. But I think there were some better picks, and that's ultimately, just like with Michael Hall, that's why I didn't give them a B+ or an A, is I thought there were other cracks you could have taken. Just real quick, I want to catch this up. I like the Zenner pick. MC likes it. If Watson is the old Watson, all of our current receivers will be elevated.
That's true too.
Question for you guys. Will Conklin play again? He'll play again.
Yeah.
Well, I've been saying that's among the range of outcomes, because we keep hearing about Watson and Chubb's injuries because they get talked about all the time and how they're doing. we don't know how Conklin's progressing. We don't hear about it, at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're talking about a guy who's countless injuries. It's almost like a Mick Foley chart. If you were to put his up there with the arrow to each one of his injuries, like when he came back from the torn patella tendon, man, that's, buddy, for a 300-pound man, that is difficult.
Yeah.
Torn quad. He underwent a lot of things, and to be where he's at with this one, it's at some point it's going to be a bridge too far, and he's going to be like, this ain't worth it.
Do you think? Do you think Conklin would have been a Hall of Famer without all that? He's a two-time All-Pro with all of that.
Yeah, but it's even then it's hard for right tackles to go in the Hall of Fame. It's a steeper slope.
I think he's a Hall of Fame
like guard.
I think he had the talent of a Hall of Famer, whether he made it or not.
Look, he was left tackle at Michigan State. Had he not been drafted by the Titans, who already had Taylor Lewan, maybe he gets the opportunity to play left tackle from the rip, and we're having a different conversation.
I just think about the level he's come back to despite all those injuries, and it really speaks to the talent that he has as a player. So I'm hoping, so part of this though is nice. Like you have DeJuan Jones now. DeJuan's coming off a torn ACL himself, right? So I acknowledge that. That's a piece to this as well. But
was it? It wasn't an ACL.
I think so. I'm pretty sure he tore his ACL.
I don't believe so.
No, it was a meniscus. He had his medial collateral ligament and meniscus repaired.
Okay. So it was knee though.
It was his knee, yes, but it wasn't an ACL.
Okay, that's better.
Real quick sidebar. What playing weight would you like to see DeJuan Jones at when he reports to camp?
Close to 350 as it can. That's a lot for those knees.
Yeah,
it is. I'm saying I'd like to see 340. If you could get to 340, I'd feel.
Well, that'd be great. I was
just being realistic.
I was being realistic. Yeah.
There is something that makes me feel a little better about saying like, okay, well now obviously Zinner, we're going to need to see him in the NFL, see what level he plays to. But when you look at the line, you're saying, okay, so suddenly you've got. I feel like you can rely on DeJuan Jones to be your backup tackle, and you can rely, ideally, on Zinner to be your backup guard. So it's like at least in that position, you're building depth at multiple spots across your line. And
my God, they brought in every offensive lineman they possibly could. They're like, we're not fucking with this year.
Well, we're not talking about it, but like Jermaine Ifedi. I think
him too.
I think more than likely he's your backup guard, and honestly, I think you slow roll Conklin back and have him be your swing. And start DeJuan is what I would do. Then again, you're trying to sell a guy who's making X amount that you're a swing tackle when you've been all pro twice but the injuries, I think, is a reason that you don't need to rush Conklin on the field if DeJuan's back to health.
I do think Kieran went just a little bit before the Browns to Chicago. I very much wonder if they would have drafted him instead of Zinter had both players been available.
It's possible. Well, all right, let's move to day 3. How did this even do this? I don't know. This is pissing me off. All right. Sorry. I don't know. I looked at the slideshow. It's correct. I don't know why it's not showing up here. All right. Round 5, pick 156. It was a wide receiver. It was Jamari Thrash from Louisville. Nick gave it a C. Casey and I both gave it B pluses. This was actually my favorite pick, and I'll get to that in a moment.
B plus I.
It wasn't the most intriguing pick, but I watched so much Jamari Thrash film this weekend. I don't know why, but I did.
Okay.
But yeah, Nick, go ahead.
I think, okay, so let me start
Explain
by saying
why you think Jamari Thrash is trash.
I do not think Jamari Thrash is trash.
Why do you hate him, Nick?
There's been so many Anthony Schwartz comparisons in my mentions. And I'm like,
they're not. They don't even play the game the same
at all. Not even a little bit. But people would just that definitely got to me. I think, okay, so let me just say, I think I would upgrade this grade to a B minus. I struggled with it. I think I held it more against the Browns. I wanted Javon Baker, and it's unfair to Jamari Thrash. It's unfair, and I admit it. Okay, I'm biased, and I was upset. And that's where I was coming from when I sent this grade. But I will say about Jamari Thrash. I like Malik Washington a ton, and he ends up going to the Dolphins, and he's just a speed guy. He's got a bunch of after the catch ability, that type of thing. And I've come around on Jamari Thrash because Malik's more like exclusively a slot, and Jamari also has the ability to play outside, which I think is definitely an asset there. Everything I've listened to about him, the biggest question is his hands, and he played with a wrist injury for a good bit there, is my understanding.
I've got something to say about that. I've got a lot about that.
Good. And so if the biggest question is his hands, and the other thing too is that I just feel like when you're looking for a receiver, I would like to see somebody that maybe is a little bit larger in frame. I worry about him getting pressed and that type of thing if you are playing him outside, because he's not the biggest or heaviest dude. I think he's like 180,
like 185, 188, something,
which isn't super heavy for a wide receiver. So those are kind of my concerns with it. But I will say he is explosive. I think he runs some routes. I watched him juke some cornerbacks out of their shoes with his routes, which was nice to see. So I certainly think he could be a contributor this year. Seems like the right kind of person in terms of those traits. I just this is not against. I just was upset with the way that the Browns went about their draft picks, but I definitely Jamari Thrash could be a contributor for the Browns this year. He certainly could. So I'm going to upgrade my grade a little bit, and it's nothing against Jamari himself.
Okay, here's my Jamari Thrash dialogue. When I was ranking receivers, I had him right behind Devontae Walker. So when I was actually in the car and we were like going over who they were going to pick, and we weren't even going over his name, I assumed he was already gone. I honestly thought he'd have been gone beginning of day 3. So the fact you get him at 156, I think that makes it a home run of a pick, just based on value of where I saw him, where I saw the player. And my mentality for finding a receiver during the draft is I needed someone with some verticality. I needed someone who could extend the field, because what the Browns lack is explosives. Jamari Thrash, you can check that box. He can hurt you in the vertical game. But if you look at the way the room's constructed, Coop, Judy, Elijah, Cedric, Bell, just being realistic, Jamari Thrash, even though I like him as a player and I think he's going to increase the explosive nature of the offense, his ceiling with the Browns is probably wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
On a bad team, he could probably be wide receiver 2. But just if you got Cooper and Judy, you're not ascending that. But
I love him as a 3, man. I love him a lot as a 3.
Or even as a 4, because okay, so him and Bell occupy the same space as far as snap share.
Yeah.
Bell's a safe player. Sometimes there's a time and a place to have the safe player on the field. But if you want to be explosive, Jamari Thrash is the way you're going with that guy. So you bring him in, the floor of your rooms automatically, we're up now.
Mm-hmm.
The floor is higher now, and he has the potential to be an explosive player. So I just love that, just knowing what I want from this offense. What I want to see from this offense, he can give you, and he can give you from the slot, and he can give you from outside. And he is diminutive in size as far as his frame, but his play strength is better. If you see him in the open field with the ball in his hands, you gotta take. I mean, you got a glancing shot ain't gonna do nothing. He'll spin out of it and keep running. He keeps his legs moving. He's really good after the catch. So I just think it was a pick that could pay off. Do I think he will contribute a ton this year? I don't. But if he gives you 2 touchdowns and they're big plays that get people excited, and you can stress the defense out because he's able to get deep, you know what I mean? I think that's worth it right there. And then you just grow his role over time. And like I said, man, maybe he's your wide receiver 3 one day, and then that's a pretty damn explosive wide receiver 3.
I've warmed up on it after seeing.
Yeah. Well, here's context. There's a lot of people out there in certain accounts that I won't name. They're like, here goes Andrew Berry drafting wide receivers that can't catch. He did not have a drop problem other than this year. Like, go look at the other numbers. They're not like he had 4 drops last year, 4 the year before. This year he has 8. He's credited with 7. 3 of those drops came after he broke his wrist. So there's almost 50% of your drops were after you broke your wrist for fuck's sakes. And he had one awful game. Against Pitt, he dropped 3 passes. So broken wrist, 1 bad game, 6 of your 7 drop passes. When I watch his tape, especially if you watch like 2022 tape, there's not a catching problem there. There are, I mean, I get it. He's had a bad game. Everybody's going to have bad games. I've watched Amari Cooper drop 2 or 3 passes in a game. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I've seen those things happen. It's not a catching problem with Jamari Thrash. I get it. You see that 8 number, that 7 number, whatever, depends on which site you go on. Some say 7, some say 8. You see that number, that's scary. Go look at his career. Is he dropping 7 or 8 a year? No, he's dropping less than 5 a year. Like, it was a injury and a bad game. They're anomalies. They're blips on the radar to me. It's not there. Listen, he may be under 200 pounds, but if you think you're just going to you're not going to wrap him up, you're going to lower your shoulder and just put him down. No, he is feisty. He will run you over. He will juke you out of your shoes. He will get yards after catch. He's such a silky smooth runner with the ball in his hands. Like, I just think that he just kind of glides and just, he can make people miss. He can run you over. He's a good football player with the ball in his hands. I think he's got tremendous body control. Like, I think that's where it is. His ability to accelerate, decelerate, and get in and out. He drops his hips, and when he's like, that was one thing Donovan Peoples-Jones couldn't do. Like, when he was running routes, like, he was stiff. He would never drop his hips to change direction. That's what Jamari does. I think he's a great route runner. I think you just brought another great route runner into this room, and he's a consistent separator. He creates separation. He's got 4.4 speed. He's got the long speed. His first step off the line of scrimmage is really good. He's not going to run in the 4.3s. He's not going to run in the 4.2s. So he's not going to be Tyreek Hill and do that sort of thing. But can he get vertical? Yes. Is he explosive? Yes.
He seems to have like build up speed. Like, if you give him a couple steps, all of a sudden he is bursting away. But might need a little bit, maybe more long speed than
it's more long. I mean, his short area explosiveness is really good, especially if he's changing directions, because I think he's got that body control and enough, and he's a decent athlete enough to make some people miss in the open field. Like, listen, I don't. You know what? I think that's me. It's me.
I'm trying to think of a wide receiver that you really liked. We haven't really talked wide receivers so much.
I mean, I really liked Elijah Moore, but I think a lot of that was more quarterback play and some usage issues.
He was in the midst of completely breaking out against the Jets. It was just that Joe Flacco was just tossing it to him because Amari was out, and you could see there was something there. And I was so pissed he got concussed because that was going to be a great game for him.
You're going to bring up Anthony Schwartz?
MC's got receipts.
Yeah, I'm sure I loved Anthony Schwartz because he had track speed, but that's one player, man. It's one player. That's me.
I don't think anybody, right? NFL GMs tell you every year that they can't figure out how to find every good player.
Dude, freaking wide receivers are so hard too. Like, I think wide receivers are some of the hardest things to. But in the end, what I'm getting at is Jamari definitely has the upside to be a 2, maybe somewhere down the line. Okay. But he's probably 5 right now. At best, he's probably 5 going into
I think he'll pass up David Bell quickly.
Is he behind Bell? No.
Well, right now today, yeah, because Bell has Bell has the trust of the coaching staff. You have to earn that. That doesn't happen on paper.
Elijah Moore and potentially even Cedric Tillman ahead of him.
I am really still bitter about Tillman not knowing
how to run routes.
Yeah, but you look at the college that he came from, they
asked him to run 3 routes in college.
And he did. He ran those really well.
I'm not really well. I'm complaining about he doesn't know where he's supposed to be.
Yeah, because he doesn't know where to run, how to run routes. He's never been told.
This is why trading DPJ was a mistake. The kid wasn't ready for the spot.
Yeah,
he could have developed on the bench and figured that out. But he found out on prime time.
You fucked around and you found out.
You know what I mean?
That was I don't. I
expect him to make a big leap this year.
Is it the DPJ pick that was Nathaniel Watson, or is that next year?
Ooh, that's a grand question. No, probably next year because we have like 88 6th-round picks.
Right.
Probably one of those.
They have 3. Yes, it is. Yes, the DPJ picks next year. This one of the 6th rounds that they had 2 6s this year, but one was from Houston in the Watson trade, and that got sent in the Jerry Jeudy trade. That was the 6th round that went to Denver. All right. Let's talk about Nathaniel Watson. Here's me not just giving B's at it on everybody, you motherfucker.
I'm giving a B.
Nathaniel Watson gets a B from Nick, C+ is from Casey and I. It's not even really when I get to my speech, it's not even really necessarily a knock on Nathaniel Watson. It's just some other things that I saw there. So go ahead, Nick.
I looked at Nathaniel Watson. I found a few different cut-ups of things he offers, and I just see a guy that's got the nose for the ball. He's forced a bunch of fumbles over the course of his career. He had 10 sacks last year. At linebacker.
Not a pass rushing linebacker, an off-ball linebacker.
Oh, and I want to make this point while I remember it. When Andrew Berry was talking about him, he said his down-the-road vision for Nathaniel Watson could potentially be calling plays for the defense. That's a 6th-round pick he's just talking up like that. And I haven't heard Andrew say that type of glowing thing without purpose. So I think there is this, despite being a 6th-round pick, there is significant expectation that this guy can be a contributor. But when I was looking at him, he's got double-digit tackles for loss, double-digit sacks. He's got forced fumbles. He's got an interception. He's got passes defended. It just seems like he offers a ton of production. 137 tackles, led the SEC, right? I could go on. There's a list a mile long for this guy of production. And I get it, right? He's 24. That's older. But I look at the linebacker room and I say, hey, Nathaniel Watson could be vying for playing time behind Hicks and JOK here in a hurry, right? Like those. That's the top of your linebacker room. I don't think there's anything stopping Watson from fighting his way into the top 3 there potentially. I love it. I think he's highly productive. He seems like a leader of the defense. I think that is a great set of traits to go after. And so I get it, the athletic stuff. I know you guys are both going to get into that, but I just said from a production standpoint, from a trait standpoint, that way, I love it.
So I didn't hear Barry's presser until after I gave my grade. It was kind of cool to hear their vision for him to be a Sam who could play their way into a mic and potentially one day be a green dot. That is a lot of praise for a young man to what they could possibly put on their plate. Obviously, he's got to earn it. I see him. This is a player because you're taking a 6th-round guy, athlete, linebacker. So here's the thing. I think he's an immediate special teams demon. I think that's the first place my mind goes. Can he work his way into the other stuff? Yes. But day one, I need you to be a demon on special teams, especially with the way things have changed with the kickoff rule. You need some guys who go down there and just be reckless. Watch this kid's tape. He's downhill. This kid's all gas. He'll get 10 sacks off ball linebacker by being hesitant. You know what I mean? See ball, get ball. That's what I need my guy Watson to be. Yeah. So, 6'2", 233. I think this is your potential talkie replacement. I don't know if that happens this year. Hopefully he can work his way into that. That would help the defense out a great deal. And this also gives, Mahmoud Diabate and Tony Fields and these young linebackers who have not really established themselves. Here's a notice. They're hiring dudes to come in and work for your job, and that's what you need, man. Breed competition, bring guys in. I seen Martin Emerson's tweet about him. I'm in. Just basically, if he's a dog and Emerson signs off, I know what kind of competitor that man is. He lined up in the same model with this guy. I think they're the same age. So
I think they are.
That's funny.
I mean, he spent 6 years at Mississippi State. Like,
yeah.
So the reason he's not a higher grade for me is he's a limited athlete. Like, I mean, you look at the relative athletic score and it's like his jumps were awful, and he's a little bit undersized, and all of that stuff says I'm not sure how high the ceiling is. But he's got a pretty damn high floor, in my opinion. Like you talked about, over 100 tackles in back-to-back years, 137 tackles this year, only 6 misses in that process. That's I think it's a 5.4% missed tackle rate or something like that, which is just insane. I was pulling up some stats. So you talked about it, Nick. 13 tackles for loss, 10 sacks. Last year it was 12 tackles for loss and 6 sacks. Those are not slouch numbers last year either. In an interception in both years. He had 2 forced fumbles this year, 1 last year. He's all over the field. I mean, he's all over the field. He's got good speed. He's just like his jumps and explosiveness is very limited. That's what the testing shows. But man, like you said, Casey, that really comes back to me is like the stuff that Martin Emerson, like if they've got the same mentality, if he's got the mentality that Martin Emerson has at corner, but at linebacker, that's the kind of mentality I want as my Sam backer. Like that is 100% what I want. Right. I think he's faster than Taki. Like, and that's a big deal. Like, I think he can cover more ground than Taki can. And so if you're putting him in that spot and you're like, well, we're getting this guy, he's not a crazy athlete, but he's faster than the last guy. And you're like, well, the last guy was still plenty good at his speed. Give me more speed and let it loose. MC says it sounded like good value in the 6th. I think it was tremendous value in the 6th.
I do too.
I give it a C+ just because he doesn't have any elite traits in my mind. I don't think physically. I don't think he has any elite physical traits, which lowers his ceiling. When you lower your ceiling in my draft book, it's more of a C+, B- guy. That's kind of where it starts to go. But I wanted a linebacker. I wanted you to take a shot at a linebacker. And you went out and got a dude with just an ass load of experience and a ton of production this year. I can't ask for more out of a 6th round pick.
I'd just like to say, from a defensive building standpoint, it's like you're starting to see the Browns can get to the quarterback, have guys that are threats to get to the quarterback from all 3 levels of the defense. We saw Grant Delpit spend a lot of time in the backfield and pressure the quarterback as time went on last year. JOK was especially good at it. And it's like now you're adding another linebacker who especially was good at getting to the quarterback. And I just love that from a like one of the biggest knocks on Jim Schwartz was just a variance and maybe too aggressive. But I just feel like if you can, I guess I don't know why they were talking about his lack of disguise and just being able to fool your opponent. And I think when you're building a defense and suddenly you've got a bunch of guys that can get to the quarterback from the 2nd and 3rd level, you can do all kinds of different formations and hopefully confuse, just cause that second of hesitation because you've got guys that are threats to get those sacks. I'm starting to see the vision for the Jim Schwartz defense, and I really like it.
I will say this about Nathaniel Watson. He might be the player I'm the most intrigued to watch in the preseason.
Oh, yeah.
Get him on the field and show me how you might use him. I'd like to see that. Yeah, I'd like to see him as a blitzer. I'd like to see him as a Sam. I'm intrigued to see that. So, well, you gonna rebuttal there, Casey? Look like you got something to say.
Mahmoud Diabate is what you just described.
I know. That's the problem, right? All right, this is the guy that probably intrigues me the most of anybody in this class, and that's their first 7th round pick, Myles Harden, the cornerback from South Dakota, former Coyote. There you go. Nick gave it an A. Casey and I both on the B train here. Nick, the floor is yours.
I just want to start by saying Myles Harden is not a tall, giant person, but you can still see that he really likes laying the boom.
He loves contact.
He's a willing tackler. He's an excitable tackler. I watched him throw himself into guys that are bigger than him. Love seeing that from this type of player. The Browns got a bunch of guys that are mean, right? From Zach Zinner to Nathaniel Watson to Myles Harden. You just see a bunch of guys that like hitting people, and I am all for that. I've listened. If anybody doesn't listen to the NFL Stock Exchange pod, these two guys got me hooked on it, and I can't stop. And I remember I was listening early in this process, and they were talking about guys who are sleepers, and Myles Harden was one at the very top of their list. I think you see tremendous ball skills. You see a guy that has a knack for interceptions, a guy that likes contact, and that does a lot of things really well. He doesn't have the big knock is that he doesn't have the long speed, but there's no secret. Greg Newsome doesn't. No, they picked up Greg Newsome's 5th-year option today, and I'm sure we can get into that as we go through the summer here. But Greg Newsome didn't want to play inside. I think Myles Harden is a guy that projects to the inside in the NFL and played at a consistently high level. Now, I get it. It's South Dakota. I understand that. But there's a ton of traits there that you say, yes, this projects to playing in the inside. He's got those quick hips, and he just looks like somebody that – did you just find your inside corner in round 7? You may have. That's certainly the ceiling of this pick, and I love that upside. He's been nothing but productive at South Dakota. I give it an A.
The only reason the Myles Harden is not an A for me is he's not Jaheim Bell.
Yep.
That's who I wanted them to take. But this is a guy, even though that I did hear his name on the NSC, I didn't do any tape study on Harden coming into this. And this is something that I need to get better in my process, because one of the things I want to do is I want to zero in on the cornerback the Browns are going to take ahead of time. I tried it this year. I put all my stock in Renardo Green when he was a 5th, 6th round pick. He gets taken at the end of the 2nd, completely off the radar. But this kid, so I didn't know anything about him other than I heard his name. So I had 2 exposures to him. I watched the Missouri game and the North Dakota State game. It's hard to find film on the young man. You get it. You know, it's 5'10", 195. It's not exceptional size, but it's adequate size. But it's his willingness to destroy runners. Like, you see that and you're like, oh yeah, I understand exactly why they would be in on this exact player. Really good recognition, triggers quickly, and just the attitude that he plays with fits right in with what that room is. And the end game has to be to have someone playing that slot position that you're not paying $15 million to.
Right.
This guy right here, Cam Mitchell, and this guy, tag team back again. Check it to wreck it. They'll get those 2, and that's going to be your nickel. Probably not this year, but going forward. You just see the genetic makeup of a dog. You know what I mean? That dude's got it, man. He's very fun to watch. Lower level competition. The Missouri game was encouraging to me, though, because there's some real receivers on Missouri's team, man.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see it next year's draft. And he didn't back down from any of those challenges, and he was the most physical defensive back on the field.
Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't watch a ton of him until after the pick, and yeah, I mean, the first thing is he will get in your face. Mm-hmm. And he will not back down. I mean, like you said, he's not the biggest guy. I mean, he's not 6'4", 225 or anything like that. But like, you can't convince him that he's not. like he goes up there like he's the biggest, baddest dude. I mean, I know we talked about this a lot with Javon Baker, that's how he was too. It's like Baker thought he was the best wide receiver in this class, and you were stupid if you didn't think that. Myles Harden feels like a guy that's like, he steps on that field being like, I'm gonna win every rep. Yeah. Like, that's how he plays. I don't know if that's his mentality. I don't know anything about the young man on that side of things, but that's how he plays. He walks on there with sort of a swagger and kind of confidence that you're like, okay, this is worth investing in. This is worth like seeing where this goes. And we've seen that you need to be physical in the AFC North, especially in the slot, because they are going to run at you. I am not afraid of somebody running at Myles Harden. Like, there's a lot of stuff he's got to, lesser competition and coverage, all that stuff. But in run support, I feel like he could play right now. Like, from what I have seen, I think as a run supporter, that's where he's going to really make his calling, is because he's going to get up there and jam guys, play press coverage, and come crashing down from the slot against, like, you try to run some wide zones and some things like that. And I think he can really be disruptive from that aspect.
So I just want to say this and point this out. This is pick 227. So nothing's guaranteed for this young man. He's getting thrust into the best cornerback room in the NFL. But if I had to place money, I say this kid makes the roster. Just based on his attitude, the way he carries himself. He's going to buy right into that we the best in the world shit. He's going to buy right into that. And it's just, that, to me, this is the most competitive defensive back room in the league. And if you can advance there from being a 7th round pick, it says a lot about you.
Final pick was Jowon Briggs, their second defensive tackle of the night. Nick gives it a B, Casey a C minus, me a C. You didn't get a tight end, you didn't get a tackle, and so it's not even a knock on Briggs for me. I'm sure you're probably somewhere along the line of script. I don't know where they were going to find room for one defensive tackle now, and they added 2. So I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, Siaki Ika, you need to show up, because I don't think you're guaranteed like I thought you were. Not after they bring in these 2. Briggs, I think he has enough that you bet on him, but man, you have defensive tackles. You didn't get a tackle. You didn't get a tight end. You still don't have a tight end not named David Njoku that's worth a shit on the roster. So for me, he gets a low grade because I think he's an okay practice squad projection player, but it just didn't make sense to go defensive tackle again.
No, you said it. I heard someone, they say they think they'll keep 6. I don't think that can happen. Just from a roster construction standpoint, they usually don't carry more than 10 defensive linemen total. Look who they have as ends, and 2 of those ends can play tackle. It makes it hard, man. It makes it hard to say we're keeping 6 defensive tackles. But there was not a need here. I get it, man. But here's my process when I'm 7th round, last pick you get swing big.
Yeah,
I don't get swing for the highest ceiling you see, and if it doesn't hit, who gives a shit? It was 243.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's where I come down on it. This kid's strong, this kid's fast. I think he's more of a one shade. I think this is the guy they'll ask to play more off the center shoulder. But he's gonna get every opportunity. This kid's gonna see a ton of reps in preseason. Make him count, buddy. Make him count. I'd say the best case scenario is latches on the practice squad and eventually gets an opportunity, just because of how crowded the room is. 2 years ago, you draft this kid, he's on your active.
Right.
But that's not the world we live in. You know what I mean? So I hope he shows out for himself and hope he's able to latch on, if not with us, with someone else.
I like Jowon. When I watch him, okay, so first he did an unreal amount of bench press reps. I don't know the number is, but he is exceptionally strong. And I just see him, he's got subtle pass rush moves. He's not a super fleet of foot guy, but he seems like somebody that can push around offensive linemen and be a problem there.
39.
He
did 39 reps of 225.
Just like hell, right. And okay, so one of the reasons
you have my attention now.
That's what I'm saying. The dude is strong. He apparently wrote a really really cool letter to Andrew Berry after their interview. It sounds like a cool person, a person that you want as part of your organization. But I just think on the field, you see a dude that I believe, I'm not sure if it was the Shrine Bowl or the Senior Bowl. Or the Shrine Bowl. Okay, so I was watching some clips from that, and it seemed like he was pushing guys around there too. Maybe this is a guy that's a good surprise, right? And so, Casey, you said swing for the guy with the highest ceiling, right? And so one of the reasons I like this pick so much is because it's kind of, to me, it's a peek inside the mentality of the front office. You both said it yourself. The defensive tackle room is full. The Browns still don't have a tight end. Now, that's a problem. I fully acknowledge that's a problem. But if the Browns if Andrew Berry was not following the best player available on his board mentality, there's not a chance in hell he drafts another defensive tackle with the way that the roster is. There's no way you can convince me of that because there's too many to begin with, right? So to me, that says, okay, even though we already drafted Michael Hall, even though we've got all these defensive tackles that are here and we know are productive, we are going to take Jowon Briggs because we think that much of him as a player. And so I'm really curious to see how that pans out. Like, is your evaluation going to prove true? And did you find somebody in the 7th round that could potentially be a contributor for you? I'm really intrigued by that because I just don't think that there's any other way that they said to themselves, this guy's the best dude on our board, that they would take him. So I gave
it was the letter. The letter.
Did it. The thank you note after the interview.
Nice touch.
I like valuing the people in your organization. Yeah. I like getting the right types of traits, and I just like you see themes across their draft boards, and that's really good to me. You got guys who are mean, guys who are leaders, guys who right. You've got so Nathaniel Watson was like the center of his defense, the right, and Zach Zinner was the center of his offensive line. And you're just looking and you're saying Miles Harden is just has that dog mentality, and all these guys do. And Jowon Briggs is clearly, he's a family man, clearly got a ton of maturity. I like that aspect as well, and seeing that like it's weighted because the people that and how they interact in your locker room, you can't measure that, but it's important.
He's going to have to hella outplay Siaka. That's his only path. He's going to have to make that man look like he doesn't belong.
Right. Yeah.
By comparison, to get Barry to move off of, well, it is when Barry's already invested the draft capital for him to be like, I'm gonna take this guy over you, even though I invested X in you, and he was a lottery pick.
I know.
That's his path. That's his path right there.
It was just a low blow to Eco on my part.
I think Andrew Berry doesn't have, like, he cut 4th round pick Tommy Togiai, right? Like, I think if Jowon Briggs legitimately outplays Ika, he'll eat it, and they'll roll with Briggs.
I think he would if it was next year. We haven't seen Berry move on that quick yet.
True.
Togiai was a couple years. Schwartz was you know what I mean?
York was the second year.
Yeah, but that's a guy you have to count on for it. You're not counting on these guys. You're stashing them on your bench to hope they reach their ceiling. With York, it was out in display in front of all of us.
It's true.
You know what I mean? There was no hiding that.
That was so bad.
Yeah, it wasn't like, he was good in practice.
They tried that for a while. They kept saying he's coming off his foot well.
It was. I was there. Camp. It was.
Yeah, he was.
He was phenomenal
in camp. He did.
He was.
And you just said to yourself, he didn't miss the whole camp. And there was like this streak, this like an unreal streak that he had of making. And then he steps on the game field and,
has the highest high you can possibly have to start a career. He nails that massive kick. They're 1-0 for the first time in like 2 decades. And then it just went to shit.
Well, he's on the practice squad again, right?
He is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
Well, he's not the practice squad yet. He's on the roster, but
gotcha. Okay. Well, so we've given you all our draft overview, and we're going to start diving deep into these prospects. That's going to be exclusively on Twitch Live, right? On Friday night, or is that live? Right?
Yeah, it's Twitch Live on Friday nights, but it'll probably find its way to the YouTube.
Yeah, and we'll get it to YouTube, but if you want to catch it live, it will be there on Friday for your entertainment. We appreciate all the support you guys have all given us. We'll keep you updated on the hat giveaway. I know Jacob's running that, and I'll probably reboost it and let everybody get a chance to enter. Maybe next week we'll announce the winner or something like that. I ate fiery chips. Jacob drank a ton of milk, and we are still looking for our sub count to have Casey eat a juicy, cold, wet tomato.
You said shut the fuck up.
And you can see how much that would be worth. I'm telling you, your subscription is worth seeing Casey face this bear. So with that said, this has been a Browns draft review episode of the Barking Browns Show. And Nick, he's Jacob. That's Casey. Go Browns.
Tomato power.
Tomato.